Hey, what is up, everybody? It is Sunday, and Odin here to give you another rundown of the week and foreshadowing of the next week. I don't know. It's Sunday, and I'm doing my video much earlier in the day, which is why I have coffee instead of whiskey in my glass. It's just the way my Sunday's going to turn out. I'm not going to be able to. Not that I'm not able to, but if I want to get to bed at a reasonable hour. The things I got going on this evening make it so I'm not going to be able to make a video, so I got to get it out earlier today. But we'll do a quick rundown and update on all things Unconditional Shove, Broken Compass Comics, KILLTHEMDEAD, lots of cool stuff going on, Magnificent Bastards. So here is what I'm working on today. As I get time, I'm going to be doing more outside yard work again, because that is life this time of year. But and yesterday was rainy, so I didn't get much done, and today it's not like warm, it's actually cold, but like last weekend was like 80s and sunny and beautiful, and this weekend it's not like that, but it actually makes it easier to work when it's more like 50 degrees and overcast. It's like I can work my ass off in that weather and not feel it. So yeah, we'll have to get to that. But this morning, as I'm preparing for my day, was drawing on this page. Pencils for it mostly done. This is a new shove page for Unconditional Shove Volume 2. This is the beginning of a 8-page story that is going to be inserted that I wrote and drew, and then there's going to be other writers that I will also be drawing on, which is James will be one, and our friend Hojo is also writing a story for Shove Volume 2, so excited for that. And then I'll write other ones myself, and I may look into other artists, we'll see. But I definitely want to do those 2 stories, so that'll be 3, and then I want to write another one, that'll be 4. Where Volume 1 only had 2 stories, we're already at 4, and then there might even be a 5th, depending on how long Hojo and James's page counts go. Because I'm keeping this one pretty precise. Right now it's scripted at 8. I could easily roll it into 10 pages or more. It's one of those things with short stories. You can kind of condense them or drag them on however much you need, you know. But as I read old anthologies like the EC and Eerie and Creepy and all the ones that I reference and I love, most of it was very short stories. They were usually less than 12. 12 was kind of like a max length for a lot of them. So, but oftentimes they were like 8, 10, you know, very short, very concise. And that's a lesson in writing, you know. How do you condense a 3-part story into 6 pages, 8 pages? So in in Unconditional Shove Volume 1, we have the Cole story, which that one's condensed to 6 pages, and it's crammed. You know, it's fucking crammed. But that's fun. You know, it's really condensed. But there's not as much room for the artwork to breathe and the storytelling. So, but that one is a little different because I wrote it in poetic meter, so you know, it's like an old poem, like oral tradition type thing, you know, where they're just reciting it. So that'll be fun. So update on Unconditional Shove Volume 1. Now that James has moved on from the fulfillment side of Magnificent Bastards, now he can focus more of his attention on the lettering, which was the final stage that's been held up. And I knew it was held up because he had so much to do with delivering Bastards, and so he's getting on that right now. As we speak, actually almost literally, I believe as we speak, he's probably working on lettering for Shove. And then for Magnificent Bastards, he fulfilled all the Canadian orders, and we even got confirmation. I know Tarix9, who's up in Canada, he tweeted it out showing what he got and was excited, so that's really cool. But the bulk of everything is US. That that came to me, so or it hasn't come to me. It will be. So Canadian Post told me it'll be here on Wednesday, and that was what James' confirmation was. So look for it Wednesday, and then I'm gonna try to get it out as soon as possible to all the U.S. backers. So that'll occupy my attention for a little bit, making sure those get all out and shipped, and then then we're right on to doing it with Shove. Once the lettering's done, getting that printed. So anyway, it kind of sounds like the same story all the time, but things move at things move at a pace they have to move at, but they're on their way pretty much, so so there's that. And then we've talked about it a few times, been on different streams, and I've talked about it on here, the excitement that we're trying to build for the book Kill Them Dead. A very ambitious project that James and I are undertaking. We're both writing it together, which has been an absolute blast. That's another thing we're doing tonight, is having a writing session, which are always fun because the story's so crazy. All the battle scenes, everything like that, it's all a one-up each other. And that's actually how we're writing battle scenes, because there are, especially right now, we're onto a battle scene, but that's actually how we're doing it. Like, pick how somebody's going to die, we're going to one-up it for the next one, so like he will decide, and then I'll come in and try to one-up him with a even crazier death, and then he'll do the same. Oh man, it's fun when you don't have to be the artist and you can just be like, yeah, make it as wild and crazy, and somebody else will figure it out. And luckily we have an extremely talented penciler in Demina, and I know he can handle it. We might have to rework how the page layouts, because we're trying to condense so much. It might be like, that has to be 2 pages, like we're trying to do so much in so little. But again, that makes it so jam-packed, full of energy and excitement, and you still have to have moments of breath, but that's going to be fun. And I've talked about it before, the art team, that's Demina on pencils, and then the Great Skunk Artworks doing the finishing of it, and then the coloring. And there's other exciting elements that we're still not ready to announce, even though we had a meeting last night, James and I, with the final person of this art team, and that'll be announced here soon. It was a very productive meeting, and we're going forward with it, but kind of waiting for something to show to confirm that before we announce it. But that's going to be exciting. And I shared this out on social media, and I was working on it last time. I did finish up this image that I was working on for Kill Them Dead of Hades, Lord of the Underworld, which is a big part of the story for Kill Them Dead. That it is all mythology based, and is basically all of the most evil mythological characters are all interspersed throughout this story. So it doesn't follow the actual mythology, except for in as much as each character follows their own mythology, but they're all thrown together into this insane world that we're creating, and it all takes place in the underworld. Not a whole much more we can talk about beyond that, but as things unfold, we will announce more without spoiling it, because there is a lot going on that's going to be fun for the reader. So, but as we have a different art team, I'm not on the art team, except for maybe in doing thumbnail sketches for the pages, just to aid the writing and the storytelling for our artists. That may be my contribution, but I also did this, which will be one of several covers that will be used. So yeah, Hades, Lord of the Underworld. I like showing this bottom part because it was a lot of fun to draw like a real psychedelic Sea of Souls kind of image at the bottom of his feet there. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with that, and I can't wait to see this colored, actually, because the coloring aspect of this book is a very important part. And again, we'll talk about that more as time goes on. But there it is. Lord Hate, and again, it always skews so his legs look all little, but that's more what it looks like. A lot of fun. So that'll be a cover used. Let's see what else. That's kind of like where we're at. James is working hard on Bastards 2. I'm working hard on Shove 2. We're also working hard on Kill Them Dead, which is kind of taken the focus from both of us for a little bit, even though we know we have these other things. So it's kind of like when we come together, we work on Kill Them Dead, and when we're separate, we're working on our own IPs, I guess. And try to get as much done. You know, this is something, it's just always worth mentioning. I throw it out here a lot. The time constraints. And anyone who's followed my channel or my journey knows that, you know, one of the biggest things for me right now is I have a move coming up. I'll be moving from Spokane to Missouri to be close to my daughters, who we're kind of in a stretch now where it's like every day I just miss them more and more, and I feel so separate from them, and it's driving me insane. So that element of like packing everything, getting rid of everything for a cross-state move, cross-many-state move. There's a lot of logistics, a lot going on in that, and that does occupy a lot of my time. And then also just the realities of this time of year, which I've talked at length about, which is my giant ponderosa trees, dropping pine cones nonstop. I have about almost a half acre of yard that I have to keep maintained as per my rental agreement. And with those pine trees just nonstop being a thorn in my side, they do provide shade in the summer. There's niceness to them, but man, it's nonstop, like cleaning up, mowing, and right now, I mean, the grass just goes wild and crazy right now this time of year. So there's that, trying to keep on top of that. Not to mention, you know, the other reality was like full-time job, and then I have at least an hour each way of commuting every day, every morning and every afternoon. That just kills my time. That's why I upload so many driving and singing videos, because I am in my car like so fucking much. And then just on top of that, you know, I've talked about going to the movies. You know, there's things that you got to do outside of work and making comic. You know, I've got to like touch earth and maintain a few friendships and relationships outside of the sphere where you're all viewing me. You know. Like last night I went and did karaoke with a buddy. A real divey bar, but still, that's where the karaoke's the best, right? Biker bar. But that was fun. I hadn't done it in a while. It's been a little bit. And that's always fun. And I hadn't seen that friend in a bit, So yeah, those are things that they're real considerations as far as like how much you can actually get done. You know, it would be so nice if I didn't have, like, I was already moved, and maybe the place I moved doesn't have quite as much outdoor maintenance every year. Even though I really do like that, I don't know that I want to not have that. It keeps me active. It also it keeps me attached to the nature around me, in a certain sense. You know, and the other thing is I'm starting to get to like a season where I really want to go hiking more. I want to go fishing more. You know, there's all these things. And it's like, it all takes time. And every time I'm away from my drafting table, you know, working on pages, and working on artwork, because I've got a few commission things in the works, and then I like going on certain streams, you know, like JBot's art stream and Topicless every once in a while, you know, just to like draw and hang out with other artists. But I'm usually not working on pages there. I'm working on just random things. Like we drew the shadow the other day, which opened up a commission opportunity. And it's like, well, I'm sitting here drawing the shadow with my time. You know, I could be working on my pages, blah, blah, blah. But it's fun to do that, and it's fun to like take a break from the work that you got to do just to do random fun shit. So all those considerations thrown out there, I just throw them out there so y'all know the comprehensive picture. Excuse me. So last video I talked about how I hadn't gotten through season 4 of Twilight Zone. I did make it through finally. It's a little harder, like I said. It's not as bite-sized because they're hour-long episodes. For season 4, they switched the format, but certain stories were really meant for this hour-long format. Certain other ones easily could have been their normal half-hour-long show, but and at the time of it, you know, I barely remember some of these. In His Image was a really good one. A guy finds out that he's actually just an android created by himself, basically. So he meets himself, but himself is the real version of him, and that one was pretty well done. Probably could have been a half-hour show. Nonetheless, it was pretty well done. And then 30 Fathom Grave. I really enjoyed this one. That's where, submarine is, well, no, they're on a destroyer, and they keep hearing these sounds from underneath from a sunken submarine, and it's really fucking with one of the guys on the ship, who's like a well-seasoned seaman. But as it's fucking with him, you find out he has an actual emotional connection to that sunken submarine, and yeah, pretty good. Valley of the Shadow, that was interesting. That one was all right. Like overall, it could have been made into a movie that might have been more intriguing, but as it was more short story, even with this hour-long format. Not bad. It's a small town where they have some advanced alien technology in this small town, but they refuse to like let it go beyond the walls, and some guy finds out, and they keep him there. Pretty intriguing. Not the worst. He's Alive. That one was actually one of my favorites. That had and it was mostly just the performance of a very young Dennis Hopper playing a Hitler-esque kind of character. He's like a neo-Nazi, charismatic, provocateur personality. He's building a following with his, rhetoric and nonsense. But then when he's not in front of all these people, you see he's a broken, tormented soul, and the battle between, and then there's some twists and turns that are actually really good. But his performance definitely is what sold that episode. But nonetheless, there's a lot of really good, as is the style of Twilight Zone, a lot of really good morality and the struggle with human nature. It's really well done. That one was really good. The Mute, that was fairly interesting. It's about a young girl who doesn't talk, but that's because she was raised by parents who died in a fire. And then these people take care of her, not knowing anything about her because they were reclusive, and they were raising her to be telepathic. And so she doesn't speak, and they think she's mute. She's never spoken because she speaks, and she was taught to speak through telepathy. Fairly interesting episode, conceptually better than the actual story. The Death Ship, which is funny because in Amazon it says the Date Ship, and I don't know why. It's called the Death Ship, and as it shows the episode, it says the Death Ship. That one was pretty good. A very good sci-fi story. Interdimensional death and how time works, and pretty well done. Jess Bell, obviously a play on Jezebel. Jess dash Bell. That one was pretty lame. It's about a girl who's attracted to a guy and has a witch put a spell on it. I don't know. It's actually pretty lame. Miniature was fairly good. A lonely man falls in love with a mini museum doll, which he believes is alive. Uh, Again, could have very easily been a half-hour episode on that one. And some of these were, kind of like social pariah, misanthropic kind of personalities. And I know they like poke on that, like, here's a man who, no one would think twice about, and he's a loser. But he falls in love with this miniature dollhouse at a museum, with specifically this girl in there. But they're like coming to life for him, and he's seeing her get attacked, and then he's like breaking through, and the museum security's like, "You're fucked up," and he's like, "Yeah." That one was actually pretty lame, not the greatest. Printer's Devil, another one that wasn't one of the greatest, but every time Burgess Meredith makes an appearance, his character is going to be amazing. And again, he does spot on. He basically plays the devil who like helps this printing press. But the episode itself, not that great, but Burgess Meredith, always great. No Time Like the Past. That one was actually pretty lame. We have a time machine. The guy tries to like change history because humanity sucks, but every time he goes back to try to fix things, it ends up happening anyway the way it's supposed to. And so it's kind of a lesson in like you can't change things that are already supposed to happen. The Parallel was pretty decent. Again, a lot of these ones here in the middle could have been half-hour episodes. I could see them in the same format as all the others. It's just a guy who ends up coming back from space, and there's all these differences, and they're noticing differences, so he finds out that he's actually a parallel version of himself, and he somehow, while he was in space, went to the wrong dimension. And there was like subtle differences, like his daughter's like, "You're not my dad," and he's like, "What are you talking about?" So he looks the same, but she knows intuitively that he's not actually her father, and pretty well done. Not the worst. I Dream of Jeannie. That one was lame as fuck. I did not like that one. It's a little more campy, and especially for the hour-long format, it's like, just don't. It doesn't work for the hour-long format. The New Exhibit, that one was kind of cool. This guy curates a wax museum, or just one portion of a wax museum, and he's so involved with the character. It's like murderers throughout history, and they're wax sculptures, and in the show they just use real people just standing still. But the wax museum shuts down, so he takes all of the wax sculptures back to his house, and his wife's like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, "No, these are my friends." It turns out they're semi-alive. I don't know. It was pretty fun. Of late, I think of Cliffordville. Sometimes I have these weird long titles, and you're like, okay. That one was... I liked the performance, and actually the main character, I can't remember his name, he's been in a few episodes, but he plays an older business tycoon, and everything he does, all his mannerisms are fucking Lopan from Big Trouble in Little China. And he's not playing Oriental Asian guy, he's like playing a white American, but as an old man. So he plays an old man, then he goes back in time to when he was younger, and then he plays a young... But when he's playing the old man, he sounds like Old Man Lopan on Big Trouble. Like, everything he says, I'm like, I wonder if that's where the character inspiration came from. The Incredible World of Horace Ford. That one was alright. It wasn't... A guy who's like a toy designer, he's really like a little child and longs for his childhood. I mean, that's a trope that Rod Serling's used many times with Twilight Zone. On Thursday, we leave for home. Oh, I just realized there's 2 episodes I didn't watch. Well, we'll get those. But on Thursday, we leave for home was the last one I watched. I didn't realize there was still 2 more. On Thursday, we leave for home was very well done. I did like that one a lot. It's a whole group of people left Earth to colonize a new planet. They got there and it was like fool's gold. They thought it would be a planet they could colonize, and turns out they get there and it's not. So it's a dry desert planet. It has 2 suns, so they never get night. Well, one guy kind of leads the group, and they've been there 30 years, so he showed up when he was like a kid, but he's like basically become captain, and they all call him captain. Well, anyway, they finally receive a call from Earth that a ship is coming to save them all because they've been living in squalor. It's been a nightmare. And when they show up, the people from Earth, they've been excited about this for 30 years, and some of these kids that they had, haven't ever seen Earth, and all they have is their parents telling them what Earth is like. The people from Earth show up, a rescue ship, and as they're preparing to leave, the people from Earth are like, hey, we're going to take care of you, everything's great. But the guy that's been in charge, their captain, he has like a god complex because he's been taking care of these people for so long. And he's like, yeah, when we get back to Earth, we're all going to stick together. And they're like, well, no, I want to go see, my family's from Oregon. I want to go there. And somebody else is like, well, my family's from the Catskills in New York. I want to go there, And so then he's like losing his grasp on these people. Where at first, in first part of the story, it seems very benign, and he's very much like taking care of them and keeping everybody together. And then he realizes that's all going to splinter off when they get back to Earth. So then he tries to convince everyone to stay there. He's like, Earth's not that great. They have war, and it's not that good. And it was really well done. And then at the end, well, I don't know, spoil it, but like at the end, I'll spoil it anyway. He's trying to convince everybody to stay on this new planet that sucks. And everybody's like, nah, we're going to Earth. Sorry, you've taken care of us this much, but actually, we just want to go to Earth. And he's like, fine, well, I'm staying. And so he stays, and they leave. And then it's just a real dramatic scene where he's watching the ship fly away, and he's like, has this like secondary moment where first he's like, yeah, so long, suckers, see ya. And they all leave, and then he's there by himself, and he's like, oh, no, actually take me with you. His pride and his God complex got in the way, and then the reality of being there alone by himself. Alone and by himself, oddly enough. So anyway, and then like I said, there's 2 more episodes that I did not watch, so I actually didn't make it all the way through. And again, it's harder to consume. There's less episodes, but the hour-long format just made it harder. So, but nonetheless, in season 5, I know season 5 has a couple of the most famous, especially the was it Terror at 35,000 feet? There's something on the wing. It's funny as I recite that, I always do the Ace Ventura version. But it's very notorious. William Shatner on an airplane, seeing a gremlin bear, Fozzie Bear looking thing, ripping apart the plane wing. And so I know that one's in season 5. There's a lot of good episodes in season 5. I'm not going to go through them, but I'll go through it and touch on it, and then that's it for all the Twilight Zones. And I'll have rewatched all 5 seasons, because I have already done this marathon before, but every couple years or so, I love rewatching them. So I was thinking about this too. My daughters, they all went and watched the new Dungeons and Dragons movie, and they all liked it. Now, they were raised on the cartoon, the 80s cartoon, which I was raised on also. But that's their only real connection to Dungeons and Dragons. That and like watching Stranger Things and knowing that people in the 80s played it. Not knowing that. I think they know, but like people nowadays still play, But I don't know that I've ever talked about my connection to role-playing games, dice role-playing games, and Dungeons and Dragons. So like I said, I was raised on the cartoon. I raised my kids on it, not raised them on it, but like, it was part of their childhood. We watched it, and I watched it as a kid. And I remember I have such a love for sword and sorcery because of that connection. And there was a lot of other reasons, but like, so when I have a brother, my oldest brother's 12 years older than me. And he was really into D&D when he was young. So when he was 16 and probably full bore into D&D, I was 4. So this would have been like 83, 84, in that area. And everything he was all about seemed so cool and unattainable to a 4-year-old, I was like, so I remember he had the basement of the house as his room, and he called it his dungeon because he was so into D&D. But you go down there, we weren't allowed down there. Like, here he was 16, he's like, stay the fuck out of my room, you little shit, He didn't cuss, I don't think, but maybe he did. We called him the big bully because he would have to watch us, and he was just like, stupid younger brothers. And now we're peers, he's my brother, and we speak on an adult level, but back then. So he'd sneak down into his room, and he had all these D&D books, and the dice were cool, and he had miniatures, and he had like crests on the wall, and like swords, and it was dark, it was the basement. And I remember my other brother, who's 2 years older than me, so we were like 4 and 6, like sneaking down in his room to like look at his cool shit, And so and I remember my dad forced him to like play D&D with us, and we had no idea what the fuck was going on, but we were just excited to like see the miniatures and mess with the dice. And like I said, it's 4 years old. I don't remember much of it, but I do remember watching the D&D cartoon. I remember watching that, but that was after. I also remember one Christmas he got my brother and I D&D toys, and I can't remember the names. And anybody who's a big fan knows, but like, my brother got the knight toy. These were the early 80s toys. And then he got like a griffin, lion, dragon thing with these gold wings. And those were his. And then I got all the evil stuff. I got the evil knight. I don't know why I can't fucking remember their names. But he had a real cool shield. And then I got the hook monster that was like a vulture. It had like a vulture beak, and he had 2 hooks for hands. And the hooks were like spinnable, I guess, on the toys. And those were my favorite toys ever. Like, I had G.I. Joes, I had He-Man, but those D&D toys that he got us that one Christmas, I was just like, I was all about it. And then I remember watching Conan the Barbarian, really young, like my brother was babysitting us, and my parents went out or whatever, and we were watching Conan the Barbarian, and just how much like that barbarian, I mean, it's like big muscly dudes in loincloths, but whatever, that was He-Man also. And I've talked about it before, I don't know which came first. It's a chicken and the egg conversation. Did I watch Conan first, and then the He-Man cartoon just seemed natural because I was like, I fucking love this Conan movie, I'm going to get into this He-Man, because I was so young, I can't remember. Or did I get into He-Man first, and then when I saw Conan, I'm like, this is live-action He-Man, And they made a live-action He-Man, which is fun for camp reasons, but with Dolph Lundgren, but it wasn't like the cartoon, nonetheless, that all happened at like I said, around 4 years old, 5 years old. Remember, like before kindergarten and into kindergarten, I was just all about this barbarian aesthetic, and so whenever I thought about Dungeons and Dragons, I always thought about a Conan type character. That was the character I liked. And then I remember some Frazetta imagery and just imagery from the D&D books was such a big aesthetic that like drew me into to imagination. You know, there's certain things at that very young pivotal age that I saw and experienced that I'm like they they captured me, and so Conan always from then on was my favorite fictional character. I just thought he was cool as shit, you know, just a badass in a loincloth. I don't know, it's cool. Um, I remember like Beastmaster and stuff like that, like liking all that shit. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but oh yeah, my kid's watching the new D&D movie. So as they are watching that, and they're reminded that that was like a socially impactful thing from the '80s, you know, and that kind of like as they look back in history, they go, oh, everybody in the '80s was playing Dungeons and Dragons, but not everybody. But it was a thing. It was a very impressive thing in the culture at that time, and then it just had lasting effects. Now, then, as a young, early teenager, 12, 13 ish, I remember playing D&D, but it didn't do much for me role playing game wise. I remember I got caught up in the Palladium books because my buddy had, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was just starting to become an explosion, right? So it started with the comic book, but they made the role playing game shortly after that, and they still had all red, uh, headbands and shit. But they made the role playing game TMNT, and we got really into that role playing game because it was the coolest thing. You made a mutant animal character, and I remember this because I always thought it would be a cool character to draw, and I've drawn it before actually. Was the first character I made because you roll to see what animal you get, and you're like sometimes it's like a fucking chicken, and you're like, re-roll. I don't want to be a chicken, but I ended up rolling and got a porcupine, and I was like, this is fucking cool, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Porcupine. You know, like I like that. And so we had a lot of fun playing that. And that led me to get into Rifts, which was another Palladium model. And that's when I was like getting more teenager and a little more advanced. And Rifts was definitely more advanced. The model, the engine by which the role playing game worked was pretty intense. And I got a few friends into it, but as they started getting older and getting into girls and shit, because all my friends were older than I was, they were all my brother's friends mostly, and I got all of them into Rifts. And we would have fun, but then, it was just like Stranger Things, where it's like they got more into girls and stuff like that, and I was 2 years younger. And so I was like, you guys don't want to. Every time we played, they would just make a joke out of it and just kill each other. And I'm like, this ain't fun anymore. And then I made my own role play game. I based it off of Rifts, but made it more fantasy like. So it was like Rifts meets Dungeons and Dragons. And I had a lot of fun doing that. Nobody ever played that. I never found any because it was getting to an age where nobody was really into it except me. But that's been my experience with role playing games. And then I didn't play role playing games at all. And then I met a group of guys at a job. I worked at this overnight call center, and so we worked overnight, and we would only get, it was incoming calls for like wireless support. And we get all these drunk assholes. My phone doesn't work. It was a lot of fun. But there'd be long stretches where we didn't get any calls, but we had to be there on call more or less. And so that's when I met some really nerds, like nerds. like actual nerds. Like at the time, I was all about pussy and like women and shit. But I was working this overnight, and there was all these dudes, and they were like all about different role playing. So we would play role playing games, but they were so technical that they had no sense of fun. So it was really boring to play to do campaigns with them. And we would try to do that, and then we'd have to take a call. And, oh, I got a call, you know. But that was like a revival for myself. But one guy, Eric El Rashidi, he was Egyptian, one of the coolest guys I ever met. I lost touch with him, but we were pretty good friends for a while. He actually had more creative juice, you know, more creativity, and he wasn't so technical. It was more imaginative with playing role play games. So we would have campaigns if he was leading it. It was a lot more fun and a lot less drudged down with technicalities. Yeah, it was an interesting time. So I kind of had a little resurgence then of doing role playing games, but like, and at the time we were doing playing vampires, which was a fun RPG. But I didn't know much about it. I was just kind of like going along. So go, yeah, I used to play. You know, like now I don't care about that shit. But since we're all hanging out, bored out of our minds in the middle of the night, let's do it. I remember one guy there, though, was, you know, I don't know what you call it. I was going to say crocheting, but he was making chainmail. So while he was on calls, he had all the chainmail links and, you know, 2 needle nose pliers, and he was doing that. And I was like, that would be cool. And he started showing me, and I lost interest, but I was like, that was actually pretty cool. He was making a little chainmail hood. Fun times. Anyway. That's all I got for this week. I do have a lot of shit I got to do this Sunday, and I've been blabbering on for a decent amount of time, like usual. But as a wrap up, let's talk about Unconditional Shove is still in demand. It will be in demand for not much longer. I'm probably going to close it down right at the end of the month, beginning of June. Whenever it goes to print, that's when we're shutting it down. So, I think if you want to jump in and you haven't, I think you've got the month of May before it's shut down. And the main reason for shutting it down is a matter of focus and moving towards other IPs. Not the least of which is Shove Volume 2, but also like Kill Them Dead. And then as a company, Broken Compass Comics, Magnificent Bastards. So that's the main reason to shut them down. It's like, stay in demand forever and just make it a store. And it's like, yeah, I get the philosophy behind that, but I also want to just feel like wrapped up and moved on, you know, from Volume 1 onto Volume 2 and just kind of keep this momentum going. So I don't want it in demand indefinitely, you know. But very close to getting to the printer. Like I said, we had to get the Magnificent Bastards, get that fully behind us, and then not too long now. So be on the lookout. We do have a sign-up page. I'm going to put it in the description. So Unconditional Shove in demand. I'll put that in the description below. The sign-up page for Kill Them Dead, as we're going to Kickstarter for that, just because Indiegogo has been fuckers the entire time. Had nothing but headaches with them. From the moment Unconditional Shove launched, and anybody who remembers that launch day, how nightmarish all the issues with Indiegogo at that time. There were technical issues on their end, but people weren't getting confirmations that they were backed. You know, you're trying to build hype, and the campaign's showing like 5 backers or something like that in real time when we've already had 20 plus people say, I'm backer number, whatever. Well, the campaign wasn't showing it. So it was a big, you know, just letdown, you know, and you want to build that excitement and make it a launch, a fun time, and it was just a nightmare. And that was just one thing. Like, James had a bunch of issues with getting shadow banned and with Bastards. Never got shadow banned with Unconditional Shove, so that was nice. But all the other issues, had issues with getting our funds, Yeah, it's been nothing but headaches with these guys, and they're not easy to get a hold of, not easy to resolve issues. And then, like I said, that confirmation thing, because that whole day of the launch, didn't know actually how well it was doing or how well it wasn't doing. All the numbers were skewed. Some people were backing and not getting confirmations. It was fucking nightmare. So we've had nothing but issues with them. Not to mention that they're just shooting themselves in their own foot with shadow banning and things like that. It was kind of a big revelation. Like, they don't like us, you know. So whereas I've seen people do well on Kickstarter, there's also, James and I are talking about utilizing Fund My Comic for spreading out our reach and capabilities. And we didn't want to be guinea pigs, but we like what we're seeing from other people and their campaigns. And I've backed on Fund My Comic and enjoyed it, so it all worked well. So that's another possibility in the future. But the sign up is right now on Kickstarter for Kill Them Dead. We also think just aesthetically, the feel of the book will do better there. We think we'll actually get some outside traffic more so. But as we get into a little more hardcore promotional for this, because there's a few things we have to secure because of the scope of the ambition of the project, we have to secure those things before we can announce a lot of things, some of which are very close. So anyway, then we could go full bore with promotion. I think I think the excitement's gonna be palpable. But again, I'll show the Hades image I drew for Kill Them Dead, which I had a lot of fun drawing and excited for this book. So anyway, that's all that's fit to print. I got tons of shit to take care of this Sunday, so hope your weekend was great. Hope wherever you're at in life, you're kicking ass. You're facing all your obstacles with power, kindness, integrity, and a commitment to excellence. So anyway, this is Odin. Take care, and we'll see you next time.